This has been an absolutely insane week in AI. So much has happened. It's blowing my mind. But today on the podcast, we want to talk about Inflection. There has been some big moves, namely that Mustafa Suleyman, the co-founder and CEO of Inflection, has resigned and is moving to head up the new Microsoft AI division, essentially. This is crazy news. They just raised $1.3 billion, Inflection did, and so this is an absolute shock to myself. Connor, what's your vibe on this entire situation?
Jaden, where do we even begin with this? We could talk about a million different things. Just like first of all, the sheer shock of Mustafa Suleyman, who, as we know, sort of like wrote The Coming Wave and was the founder of DeepMind, which then Google bought. And when Google's buying your AI company and running it and naming it Google DeepMind, you know that's quite a thing to have on your resume. And now he's going over and he's going to be the CEO of Microsoft AI, which is going to oversee Bing and Copilot and all that kind of stuff. But that was weird enough, right? I mean, like, that's one of these things where you just don't see, especially because Inflection, Jaden, you and I are all over LinkedIn. Inflection was getting a lot of buzz, I feel like, lately, right? They had just released 2.5, and they're saying this is pretty close to GPT-4. And I had put out a lot on my LinkedIn around Pi. I was like, guys, tell me your use cases for Pi, because I don't use it that much, but I can see it. People were loving Pi, and Pi was announcing they have like 1 million users a day and that the average time on it is 33 minutes. And then they were like, and, we have this API now, which I can really see, because for things like that, have to like healthcare, maybe in legal, maybe in insurance, I can see a ton of use for this particular API where they really need a sympathetic.
This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row, all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Voice first, first empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And Pi is phenomenal about this. They just raised all this money. And then, Jaden, the bomb drops. Basically, it's not just Suleyman. It's not just Karen. I'm forgetting his name. He's going to be chief scientist over at Microsoft as well. They're basically taking the entire Inflection team in much the same way they were going about. Microsoft was about to take the OpenAI team. So they don't want Inflection's stuff. They want the Inflection brains to bring over to Microsoft and run Microsoft's consumer-facing thing. Anyway, Jaden, I could keep on going on and on, but I was blown away by all this.
Yeah, this is insane. Like you, blown away. I think essentially what they did is they acquired Inflection, to be honest, but you can't do an acquisition today because of the regulatory environment. Everything gets blocked, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. But that's another conversation, right? So, Adobe tried to buy Figma. It was like a year-long process, and then some watchdog group in the UK shut it down. So it's impossible to do acquisitions. I think Microsoft knows that. This is why they've essentially invested and got 49% of OpenAI. And now they have now they're not even pretending anymore. They're just okay, we're just going to hire the entire senior leadership team and all the engineers at Inflection. It was funny when Mustafa did his post, he was and a bunch of the team has decided to come with us. It's of course they've decided to come with you. You are the company. People, I don't think we should kid ourselves. There definitely is Reid Hoffman, who is a huge headline here on, being a leader in Inflection, but really Mustafa Suleyman is Inflection. He's the big guy. So everyone, of course, can follow him. He's like the Sam Altman. And so, yeah, this is insane. I think Microsoft essentially acqui-hired Inflection. I'm so curious, what price did they have to pay him? Because you think, Mustafa, in his book, literally said he left Google because it was a big bureaucratic company and he wanted his own company that he could run. And it's not he tried this little thing and it didn't work. He's one of the top 5 most funded American AI companies, period. $1.3 billion is not a joke. 20,000 H100s is not a joke. He literally has more firepower than anyone else. And so if he's saying like, we couldn't achieve our mission alone at Inflection, whatever your mission is, you 100% had the most resources of anyone. You 100% could do it. So my question is like, did he lack, and like, sorry, I'll try to curb my like, I'm mad at him. I'm going to be honest. Did he lack the commitment to his company, or did they just offer him a lot of money? Like, does he not believe in what they were doing? Because you have a ton of money, a ton of resources. Like, for all intents and purposes, if you're believing you're doing something good, you should do that thing. Or did Microsoft just offer you a lot of money and it looks good on your resume? I don't know. I'm kind of mad at Mustafa right now, so I'll try to curb myself.
I like your attitude, Jaden. You're a revolutionary who's like, always going for the smaller guy. I'm with you on this. So a lot of things to think about here, right? I mean, like, gosh, I never want to sort of like get into his pocketbook on anything. Like, if somebody wants to go somewhere for more money, more power to them. It does seem unusual he must have made a boatload on the DeepMind thing. He must have made, he could make a boatload because Microsoft is going to take care of the investors on Inflection. He was going to be fine there. It's hard to imagine this was a money play, but again, I don't know. But certainly with OpenAI, that was never a money play. That was kind of a philosophical thing. So I guess my big question is something happening, just below the surface that we really need to pay attention to? Like in the movies where the animals all start running and you're like, why are the animals running? Do you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, is this one of these situations where they just saw, and they haven't said explicitly, but a lot of people are probably saying it, the LLM, battles here there's only going to be a couple of winners potentially in this, especially in the consumer-facing side. I can imagine a lot of different winners in the enterprise side, right? I mean, like, I can imagine what Cohere is trying to do. I can imagine Inflection trying to do this with an enterprise system. I can imagine a lot of different players working because, players are even building their own, companies are building their own internally. SAP and Salesforce, everybody else, they're building their own thing. I guess my question is Suleyman's move over there saying the consumer sort of like just the traditional like battle of the large language models for consumers has been won. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been, we could put in the same boat, maybe OpenAI, Microsoft OpenAI is kind of the same, Anthropic, and it's going to get overly commodified or something like that. Do you think are we sort of seeing a signal here that we're just ignoring?
Okay, I do think there's a signal. I think you have a great point. And I mean, honestly, it's just more terrifying than I thought before. But here's my perspective on it. So Microsoft recently released there was a lawsuit and they were involved in it. And because of this lawsuit, there was some like discovery that came out. Anyways, this is a quote from Nadella, from CEO of Microsoft, right? And this was I'm reading this, but this is off of the lawsuit. Anyways, Microsoft CEO boasted that it would not matter, quote, if OpenAI disappeared tomorrow. He explained that, quote, we have all the IP rights and all the capabilities. We have the people, we have the compute, we have the data, we have everything. We are below them, above them, around them. So, in my opinion, Microsoft owns everything. I've said this before, and I got a lot of people that were like triggered at me and angry, and they're like, "That's just inaccurate. They only own 49%." No, if you own 49%, you own the company. It was, whatever. You get the IP, you get everything. Everything's run on Microsoft. They have the code. They have everything, right? So he just said it. Anyways, what I'm wondering though is at this point, if Microsoft owns all the IP of OpenAI, Google seems to be, for lack of a better word, sort of floundering in this space. Like they're competing, they have products, but they're not number one, and they should be number one, so they're not. So they have a higher bar to hit. So it seems like Microsoft may win. And when you start looking at, if you want to go like AI conspiracy theories, right? You have Sam Altman getting fired, and everyone's like, what did Ilya see, right? There's like that whole like joke or whatever meme that everyone posts on X. But it's like, what did Ilya see? What does Mustafa see? Why is everyone and everything gravitating to the central force of Microsoft? Like Microsoft is a vacuum in the AI space. It is sucking up literally everything. Mistral's announcing deals with them. Anthropic is getting them as the main as a big investor. Like everything's gravitating towards Microsoft, and it makes you wonder, in this world that originally with OpenAI was designed to be an open source AI model for everyone, to avoid Google being this like dominant superpower after their acquisition of DeepMind from Mustafa. Now it's like Mustafa has switched to like, is it any different? But I guess, okay, all I'm saying here, this probably isn't a shocker. Mustafa sold DeepMind to Google, which probably a lot of people at the time said this is bad for the AI company to be consolidated. And now Mustafa is selling himself to Microsoft. So he has a track record of selling himself to a big company and giving the technology to a big company. For better or for worse, I don't think he's the vision of OpenAI of kind of having this open source AI model for everyone.
Yeah. This is this is where I want to kind of like take this as well, right? Is that like, usually, Jaden, I love conspiracy theories, and you're my favorite conspiracy theorist. And usually, like, I'm on here being like, Jaden, you sound like a nut bar. I'm just looking at the facts, and I think you are too around this. And so this is a Microsoft story, maybe more than anything else. But here's the interesting thing about Microsoft too, right? Is that like a couple of things happening. So, and these aren't conspiracy theories. These are just, we can easily imagine why Microsoft might want to buy. They're not buying Inflection, but they're spending a ton of money on buying the entire team. So first of all, with Elon Musk's lawsuit, you remember what this said, right? It was like, hey, Microsoft shouldn't have, when this thing hits AGI, remember this whole like agreement where it hits AGI, Microsoft, I think, has to, release not the copyright, but, it's sort of like release control of it, right? Which is a really weird.
They don't get the new IP. Yeah.
Right. Which is a really, really weird clause. This is kind of like when, Disney or whatever was like, sure, we'll own this for 100 years, never thinking that 100 years would come. And AGI, I think, is coming way faster than Microsoft could have possibly thought when they signed something like that, because that's nuts. Now, I'm sure that was a Sam Altman, clause in there or something like that. But so first of all, this could be Microsoft hedging on, well, if we don't have the IP of OpenAI, we're going to need something, pretty similar. So
we're going to need our own in-house Sam Altman, which is Mustafa.
Exactly. And you could argue that Mustafa, along with Daria Amadei and Sam Altman, sort of like, those are that's pretty close to the trifecta, right? Of like, sort of like the top minds in AI, at least on the surface. I'm sure there are scientists would kind of come along with that too. That's number one. Number two, I'm wondering, and I've heard this as well, which is, now that there's so much more regulation kind of coming, like the EU is doing a lot more with regulation and everything else, and the companies that are going to get scrutinized are absolutely the ones we're starting to grade on a curve, right? We're like, oh, AI is AI, but no, now Anthropic has a much different model, this constitutional model, like much more safety focused. They have that very weird board structure, which OpenAI did too, but then we watched that blow up spectacularly when they actually tried to kind of quote unquote do their job. So we saw that didn't really work. But I'm wondering if Anthropic will probably get a kind of like a little bit of an easier path, like let's just call it through Congress, right? Or through regulation, than something like a Microsoft or an OpenAI. And I'm just wondering, Inflection, and especially Suleyman himself, seem to be, at least on the surface, I don't know, but, really focused on safety and regulation, all that kind of stuff, saying like, hey, we got to take this like really seriously. And I'm just wondering if this is Microsoft's sort of like way of countering what Anthropic is doing. So saying like, no, look, we're taking safety like really seriously. Or do you think I'm just like off the rails on that?
I think, who knows? So my speculation though is like, I think some of what you said is spot on, which is the hedge against the AGI. And here's the thing about AGI. It's not hedge against what real AGI is, because AGI is not an actual tangible term.
Right, it's not.
So I think that clause is so crazy. That clause essentially is just like putting a pin in the contract for like a future lawsuit. Like, we will sue to say it's AGI at some point in the future, and then this is our like way to get out of giving you more IP that's like from OpenAI. So I think that's interesting, because Microsoft's not going to let that go easy. They're going to fight. Like, those lawsuits could draw on for years of them saying, we haven't reached AGI. This is an AGI. Like, what is AGI, right? So that's going to be more drama. So if you like the drama, there is plenty more where that came from. And then, so I think that's probably it. I don't know if it's as much of the safety thing from my perspective. But who knows? I think they need their own in-house Sam Altman. I think you nailed that. And so I think they got it. My only question is, what did they give Mustafa and what did he see? My only other thing is like replacing him at Inflection is, I think, one of the previous like founders of the Mozilla Foundation from like Firefox, which like cool. But at the same time, like, I hate to be like bagging on like a company that for all intents and purposes, Mozilla has been very successful. I used to love Firefox. It's just not a dominant market player. So it makes me feel like, is Inflection going to become the Mozilla of browsers? Like, I think Inflection has the ability, has the potential right now to be like in the top 5 models, the top 5 players. You probably have like OpenAI and Claude, Mistral, and then Llama, and then probably Inflection, and maybe there's a couple others I missed. We'll be mad about, but like it really is one of the top 5 players, and I think they have a fighting chance of being Gemini, of course, being one of these like top players. And so I don't know. I wonder if Mustafa felt like it was slipping, and they were gonna just not make it right. I think Mozilla Firefox is like single-digit market share on the browser. And maybe they're just essentially everyone's worried that like that's going to happen to these models. And so he's like, well, we're going to jump to Microsoft because Microsoft's going to be number 1. I don't know. I hate it. I hate it because I feel like it's not a fighting spirit. From me and my perspective as someone that's creating a tech startup, I'm raising funds from investors. I would feel quite bad, just like, oh, I got a better opportunity. See you later, investors. Someone else is going to like deal with that. Like, and it just doesn't feel like you have this fighting spirit. Like, I have this vision, I have this company, and I'm going to make it happen, win, do or die, conquer. Anyways, but maybe that's not his background. I don't know. But
no,
that's my issue with it.
I'm with you. I mean, and just to sort of close this all out, like, I think that it may be that, I mean, top 5 is great unless you're like in a presidential race when really only the top 2 match. Do you know what I mean? Like, so maybe that's where we are. But yeah, I hope that someday he like comes out and actually kind of gives us a better answer.
100%. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning into this episode, for listening to my ranting on this one, and Connor's very wise, probably bring me back to earth sometimes. But really appreciate you guys all listening. If you got anything out of this, if you appreciated this, learned anything new, we'd really, really love it if you left us a review. It mean the world to us. Super easy to do. On Spotify, it's on the About tab. You got to click that, hit some stars, and then on Apple Podcasts, you scroll down and can leave us a review. Anyways, hope you all have an amazing rest of your day.